Good morning. Oh, it is afternoon, isn't it? All these time differences confuse me. I'm Christy Tons. I am a PBI staff consultant with KDE. I would also like to say our other consultant, Rachel Chinga, today, she is conducting a youth mental health first aid training, so she couldn't join us today, but she did want the people that she had invited to know that she will glad that you are able to join us today, and that's where she is.
Thank you, Christy. And I see Debbie, our branch manager. Debbie, would you like to do your introduction?
Sure. Hi, I'm Debbie Sauber. I think I know most of you here, but I'm the branch manager for Safe and Supportive Schools at KDE. Nice to meet you all.
Debbie, is there anything extra you would like to say? We just went ahead and started.
No, I'm just kind of here to listen and see what's going on. So,
all right, good deal. I think that's all of our team that I see. So we'll start with our the rest of our folks this afternoon, and I'm just going to go alphabetically. I see Tracy Albert in the list. Tracy, if you would mind to introduce yourself to the group.
I'm Tracy Albert from Williamstown Schools in Northern Kentucky, and I am the Director of Federal Programs, but the District PBIS coach.
Welcome. Annie Connor.
Hello, Annie Connor from Southeast South Central Educational Cooperative. I am one of 2 social emotional learning specialists.
Welcome, Annie. Let's see, Laura Bryant.
Hi, I'm Laura Bryant. I'm from MTSS Behavior. I work as a resource teacher for Jefferson County.
Good to have you. Lou Carter.
Hi, I'm Lou Carter. I work for Murray Independent Schools.
Good to have you with us today, Lou. Cher Smith.
Hi, I'm Cher Smith, and I'm a behavior consultant with Southeast South Central Educational Cooperative.
Good to see you, Cher. Dusty Phelps.
Hey, everybody, Dusty Phelps, the other behavior consultant at Southeast South Central.
Good to see you, Dusty. Eli. Lathram, I apologize if I've not said that correctly.
No, that's okay, Lathram. I appreciate it. I am a school counselor at Murray High School and our Tier 2 team coordinator.
Good to have you with us today. Sandra Hensel.
I'm Sandra Hensel. I am the MTSS Behavior Supervisor for Jefferson County Public Schools.
Good to see you, Sandra. Tony Jarvis.
Mr. Jarvis is our principal here at Murray High School. He's currently, he had to step out to do a parent meeting really quick, but he is on the meeting.
All right, thank you. Taking care of those principal roles, huh?
Yes.
Busy times, I'm sure. Joanna Jones, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Joanna Jones. I'm a PBIS consultant with Green River Regional Education Cooperative. Glad to be here.
Good to see you, Joanna. Kathy Maciel. Kathy, if you're speaking, we're not hearing you. I don't see you, so I'm not sure if you're trying to speak and can't.
Kathy is my counterpart at GREC. She's a behavior consultant with Green River Regional Education Cooperative, and she's changing computers, she said, so.
Okay, all right, thanks, Joanna. Matthew Davis.
Hi, I'm Matt Davis, and I am the other social emotional learning specialist at SES.
Okay, welcome. We're glad to have you with us today. David McDowell.
Yes, I'm David McDowell. I'm Director of Special Ed, District PBIS Coach for Murray Independent.
Good to see you today. Thank you for joining us. Molly Allen.
Hi, my name is Molly Allen. I'm an SEL specialist here at OVEC.
Good to see you, Molly. Let's see, Robin Pointer.
Hi, I'm Robin Pointer, the Assistant Superintendent for Hancock County Public Schools, where we became a district-wide PBIS school district under the leadership of Joanna Jones and Christy Tomes.
Okay, great to have you with us today, and congratulations on that district-wide implementation. Wonderful. I believe that's everybody, but I think okay, we have someone else joining, Sarah Pickering. Sarah, I hate to grab you as you just come into the meeting, but we're doing some introductions. If you would like to unmute and introduce yourself.
Hi, sure. I'm Sarah Pickering. I am the District Safe Schools Specialist for Fayette County Public Schools, as well as the PBIS Coordinator. Good to be with you.
Thank you. It's great to have you with us today as well. And I see Jared Sloan. Jared, would you like to do an introduction for us?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you missed maybe myself and one or two other folks, but I understand how it is trying to juggle this. So good afternoon. I am Jared Sloan with the Kentucky Department of Education Office of Special Education and Early Learning. And I'm about to say a mouthful, just to warn you that I work on significant disproportionality and comprehensive coordinated early intervening services, as well as physical restraint and seclusion for the office.
That was a mouthful, but we're definitely glad to have you with us today.
And other duties as assigned. So
we understand that too. I think I see also Julia Staten. Julia, have you had an opportunity to introduce?
Hey, no, I'm Julia Staten, and I am sorry I'm on camera. I'm traveling today, but I am with KEDC, and I am the Project Aware Grant Coordinator, and I also do our regional PBIS.
It's great to have you with us today as well. Is there anyone else that I have left off? I certainly have not intended to, but if I have, please unmute and introduce yourself.
Hey, Karen, Stacy Lindsay is going to join us. She's having trouble just with the link, but I'm trying to get her set up. She's from Warren County, and so she'll be popping on here in just a minute.
Okay, great. We're excited to have Stacy with us today as well. Nicole, before we let you start, Katie, would you like to do an introduction of yourself?
Yes, good afternoon. Katie Pullman with Midwest PBIS Network. Seen many of your faces as we are the hub of the National Center on PBIS, and as part of the implementing partnership with the Center on PBIS, Kentucky is one of our assigned states to support building capacity. So have been working with the KDE School Climate Transformation Consultants and many of you within the co-ops throughout the last few years. So it's great to see lots of familiar faces.
Yeah, really exciting to see such a large group here with us today. And Nicole, you're on the spotlight, so we'll let you introduce and then just let you take it over from here, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, Karen, and thanks to the KDE
You're welcome.
team. Yep. And thank you, Katie, as well as my partner in this work. I also bring you greetings from Midwest PBIS. I'm not sure that I know many of you. This is probably my first time getting to see some of your faces, and others I have had the privilege of meeting. So I'm excited to have this opportunity to be with all of you today. And really, my portion is to talk about a potential opportunity for school districts that may be in your regions or school districts that are represented here that will be focused on inclusive PBIS. And you might say, well, what does that mean? Here you come with a whole new way of articulating PBIS. And what I'm hopeful is after the time that I'm able to present sort of where we're thinking and what we're hoping you would help us shape, that you'll see some purpose in the project that we are pushing forward, just to see if it's something that really could meet your needs or something that you could see being useful over time. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and you got to just I'm going to share my screen. And so we're going to hope that everything works well when I do that. Give me 1 second. Okay, and hopefully you are seeing a slide deck. Let's make sure. And Karen's nodding. Thank you. Okay, so we are all good. So as I said, part of my duties today are really to introduce a potential new project, the Inclusive PBIS Demonstration Project. And essentially what we mean by demonstration site is just that. We want to be able to not only allow or provide the opportunity for a site to participate in some new innovation, but also to learn from that site and grow with that site. None of us are really thinking that we're the supreme experts in any of this work, because contextually, this work looks so different all within the framework of PBIS. And so it's an opportunity to really learn and grow with people that are doing this every day. And so the purpose of the demonstration site project is to really focus on PBIS implementation in general, but the focus will be on equitable outcomes for every learner. And I want to just spend some time there around that term, every learner. I think sometimes when we hear the word inclusive or even equity or belonging or things of that sort, there may be an assumption that the groups that we're talking about only are connected to race or to gender or to disability. And in reality, when we talk about equitable practices for every learner, that is inclusive of every learner in a school or in a state or where have you. So I want us to think about that, because we have students that come from low socioeconomic status. We have students of different religions, just every type of culture that could exist in your building, we know is there. So as I go through this, try to think about that context. And what our goal is to really enhance our efforts to build state, regional, and district capacity around being responsive to the needs of our students. And so one of the things that I think is really important and pivotal is that even though we're focusing on demonstration sites, an ideal situation would be a school district says, we want to engage. We may have a couple buildings who are really interested in this, and we're going to learn together at that district site. All throughout that process, though, we are implementing and hope to implement what's called a cascade model. And for some of you, that's very familiar language. For others, that may be new. But what we're essentially saying is that the folks that you heard introduce themselves from KDE, our regional co-op friends, all of us want to learn together. And so that cascade allows for that capacity build across the cascade. So the regional piece, the district piece, the school piece, and then at the very core, the teams that are doing the work in the buildings. And so that's the overall goal of coaching across this cascade approach. So you may say, well, how do we know if we want to do this? One of the things that we think is important to really put forward to you is this idea of readiness. And while readiness is going to look different from building to building, from district to district, from county to county, we wanted to offer some kind of nuggets that can help you decide if this might be the project that you want to engage with. One of those is to be able to have a data system that has the ability to disaggregate. So that could be disaggregating by race, by gender, IEP status, English learner status, socioeconomic status, etc. The goal there is that if we aren't able to disaggregate the data, it's pretty hard for us to know if every learner is experiencing our implementation in the same way or in the best way to meet their needs. So the disaggregation of that data gives us a story and also gives us some guideposts on different things that we could do to be more responsive. And that's the goal of this project. In addition to that, we would want an established PBIS core team that has specific roles and functions that are in place, a committed administrator. We know when we implement these things that really impact systems over time, the administrator role is critical. Not that they are the sole leader or the ones that have to make all of the decisions, because they're giving a lot of that to their team, but they hold a lot of the role that makes sure things get done and push forward. And so a committed administrator is necessary for embarking on a project like this. We also would hope that districts have at least attempted to complete the tiered fidelity inventory, which is a fidelity assessment at tier 1 at least, with at least 70% fidelity. What we're essentially saying here is that that type of percentage would give us an indication on how strong foundationally tier 1 is, so that as we continue to build in nuances like looking at disaggregated data, foundationally we're pretty sound at that universal level. In addition to that, when we consider readiness, we want to really think about our ability to engage districts or schools, the ability to engage in ongoing coaching and technical assistance. And I'll unpack that momentarily, but that ability to receive that coaching, that ability to carve out time for that assistance is going to be pivotal. Also, as I mentioned at the onset, we're really looking for the ability to learn with and from. And so with that, the willingness to share data stories with others in a community of practice space is another really important component to this project that's going to shape how we all can learn together and how context to context, we can take different nuggets from each other and make sure that we're being responsive as possible. And then finally, as we think nationally, and as Katie said at the onset, Midwest PBIS is a hub to the National Center on PBIS. There's opportunity for other states to learn from you as well. And so with those opportunities, it's the willingness to engage in serving as examples or exemplars in training materials for other educational entities. So while we would be very discretionary and making sure that confidentiality is always at the top of our list, there are opportunities for them to learn from a district that has performed in this this demo site opportunity to be able to say, yes, we learned by doing this, not to have it all perfectly done, but whatever learning happened, that we could turn that around and help others to learn what they need to do next. So that's the readiness piece. I'm going to pause. I know we're probably going to do questions towards the end of my time, but I do want to pause and just see if there's any questions before I proceed. And please feel free to either unmute or chat.
Hi, Nicole, it's Sandra. I have a question.
Yeah.
Thinking about in JCPS, where we have a mix of schools, some who are doing restorative practices and PBIS and some who aren't. Would that impact what you would be looking for from a site at all? Would you want someone who's just pure PBIS, or is it okay to have RP in the mix?
I think it's okay to have that, because that's something that's within your framework, right? It's a practice that you have established within. And if I'm incorrect, please correct me, but it wouldn't prohibit us from being able to look at disaggregated data and thinking about how to embed restorative practices with whatever practices we also want to do from a responsive viewpoint. So I don't see that being a barrier.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Great question. Other questions? Okay, I'm going to keep going. And if there are some more, don't hesitate to hit up the chat and or just say, hey, Nicole, I have a question. I'm totally okay with that. Okay, so what is the scope of the work? Essentially, we're looking at what I think makes the most sense. And Katie and I have had discussion, and you'll hear more from her when she talks about the Tier 2 project, and being very intentional in the progression of learning that we hope to achieve. And so I gave you sort of a snippet of the readiness piece. But the one thing that we think would be important is to really kick off this demo project with a leadership and readiness session that would be approximately 3 hours, and really get down to the nitty gritty of figuring out if this is something that the team would want to commit to, as you see, moving then into a 12-hour training opportunity. And we'll talk about how those 12 hours could be obtained. So we would start with that inclusive PBIS leadership and readiness component. Then we would move into the core training, which would be the key pillars of inclusive PBIS, which I'll talk about momentarily of what those are. We also would want to offer that community of practice opportunity. So about 1 hour a month for 6 months, the teams that agree to engage in this demo site would come together, having a facilitated discussion and some learning together on how it's going, what are some roadblocks you're facing, what are some successes, what are the things that you're seeking to start, stop, or continue. That would be in that space. And then what we would hope to do is offer individualized TA along with our KDE consultants, along with our regional co-op friends, that they would be able to also help with the TA that comes from this project, about 2 hours in a site per year. And so while that seems like, okay, 2 hours in a site per year, the ongoing TA would remain in that cascade approach. So KDE consultants, our regional co-op consultants, those folks would be continuous partners in this project along with Katie and myself. So what we're hoping to achieve, objectives and anticipated outcomes. What we're hoping to see are methods to create inclusive and responsive learning environments for every learner with that focus on equitable practices and spaces of belonging. So in a nutshell, what we're looking for is if the data is showing us that there is disproportionality in certain students receiving, let's say, office discipline referrals, or even disproportionality in access to acknowledgement systems, because disproportionality can exist in many different facets. The bottom line is, are there certain groups of students who are not experiencing our system in the same way as others? How do we change that? How do we shift that? And so that brings us to the second area, a service delivery model that consistently evaluates and responds when disproportionality is detected. And again, just want to reiterate, when we think of significant disproportionality, which we heard about earlier in the introductions, that is something that is specific for our special education side of the street. Disproportionality across the board nationally exists in many different ways. And so I just want us to be clear on when we think of suspensions, expulsions, even restraints, disproportionality can exist that may not be at the level of significant, but disproportionate and something we should address. Our goal is to decrease disproportionality results in those office discipline referrals and those exclusionary practices, for instance, suspension. So that's the overarching scope of the work. So I want to break down each one of them. I'm not going to, go into significant depth because we want to just give you sort of a taste of what it could be. And then when we have the leadership and readiness session, we'll go much, much deeper. But this is just to see whether or not this is something you're interested in. So the leadership and readiness session would essentially be about focusing on the key tenets of creating an equitable PBIS framework. And where I have this is if we were to click here, it would take you to pbis.org. And in pbis.org, there is something called the 5-point approach to enhancing equity and discipline. And in that 5-point approach, those 5 points are to collect, use, and disaggregate data, to create and implement a culturally responsive tiered framework for behavior, to focus on policies and assessing policies and how appropriate they are or if they are contributing to disproportionate outcomes, focusing on neutralizing things like bias or dignity distortions and how to create neutralizing routines to change some of those outcomes, and then enhancing instruction to be more engaging to enhance equity in the classroom. So those are those 5 key components or key tenets or pillars that really will be shaping and organizing this work. So the leadership and readiness session will dive into those 5 areas and really help the school leaders that attend determine their readiness for the full team training. And so we'll be looking at things like Tier 1 foundations. Remember, I talked about the TFI being at least 70% or more, that the team has representation, that we're identifying coaches and coaches are able to help with their data analysts get the data that is necessary and make sure that our data system can disaggregate in the way that we need it to. And so, as I said, school leaders would be encouraged to participate in this and then register a team for the 12-hour training series for the key pillars, which are those same 5. Who should attend this? Our regional co-op coaches, district leadership team members, district or building administrators, whether you have a district coach or a building-based coach, we would want those key people there at that leadership and readiness session. So that's 3 hours. And we'll talk about a timeline in a minute on when that would be offered. So as we think about a cohort sort of model with the key pillars, this is the 12-hour. And at the bottom, what I want to highlight is we're in talks, and this is why we're kind of putting this out to all of you. We'll ask your input at the end, the flexibility of those 12 hours. Are we thinking a 1 day, just get it done? Are we thinking half day? Are we thinking modules? We're thinking of different strategies because we know that time is of the essence. It's a commodity for a lot of us. And so we want to be honest and open about how we can create this space so that people are getting what they need in the best way possible. So just know that we're going to have that conversation. As I said, this one is mainly for the team. So once leadership and readiness has happened, we're now moving into the 12-hour team-based training. And so this supports the development and improvement of those key pillars, really focusing on equitable systems, data and practices within the context of the PBIS framework. I've linked that document where I talk about the 5 points. And at that time, the goal would be for teams to create action plans based upon those key pillars. Who should attend this? The regional co-op coach, the district leadership team, district and building administrators, district and building tier 1 coaches, and building-based team members. And again, we know to get substitutes and all of those things can be difficult. So we're thinking of perhaps offering this in the summertime. So I'm kind of ahead of myself, but we want to just kind of, if you're getting a little anxious, like, how am I going to get all these people out of the building? We're trying to be cognizant of that as well. The community of practice, as I said, would be 1 hour a month for 6 meetings. These would be times where we could talk about how are we doing? Are we monitoring the benchmarks of implementation? Are we engaging in problem solving? Having the opportunity to maybe have a team come with a problem of practice and we all help them analyze and think about next steps. And then TA on how to deepen that implementation. So it's an opportunity to really learn from each other. The goal here would be for our regional co-op coaches to come, district coaches, and if school teams are able to come, which ideally that would be best, the building administrator and the tier 1 leader or coach should be there too. So no need to bring everyone, sort of like we did with the 12-hour opportunity, but this one allows for a little bit more intensive supports amongst peers. Okay. And then we talked about individualized TA, which we just wanted to break down each one of these. So what may happen is, let's say a district decides to do this, myself, probably, and/or Katie, we'll see how this goes, along with our KDE consultants, our regional co-op coaches, would observe a tier 1 meeting and the conversation that's happening there to really think about what the feedback loop could be, how to support, offer reassurance, because roadblocks they're going to happen. And so how can we ensure that we're a support for you? Same thing as you'll see as far as who should attend. The basic school team membership remains as what you'll see in the tier 2 demo site as well. So your basic tier 1 team members should be representative like you see on the screen. Okay, I've talked a lot. I've taken you through the map of where we're hoping to go. I want to do a check-in. What is affirming to your thinking or your needs? What things are you like, yeah, I like this, or, you know, these are the things we need. And then what questions do you have? Then after that, we'll move into you helping us shape the timeline. So let's do this check-in first. And if I could ask Katie or Karen to check the chat, if there's things coming in, I can't see the chat. That would be helpful. You can also unmute if you have a question too. Okay.
I want to
Wait.
clarify. Does it have
Yes.
to be the whole district that does this, or can it be specifics like certain schools from the district?
So I feel, and Katie, you can jump in because I want to be consistent with your tier 2 demos. I think as long as there's district leadership representation, it does not need to be a full district offering. I think that's appropriate given what we've gone over, because not every school is going to be at the place that we need them to be district wide. Katie, do you have another thought?
Nope. And I think our consultants are going to be on the same page with that as well, right? There might be readiness in some buildings and not in others. And the overall intention of this work is to build capacity throughout that cascade that Nicole referenced at the beginning. So it might be that as a district, you are going to have a couple of 1 or 2 schools, kind of depending on your size, or maybe a few more. And you're going to work with them as your demonstration buildings that you might then build enough capacity that you bring on more schools in the following year using the same approach. So our goal from Midwest to KDE kind of down is how do we continue to build the capacity across that cascade so that this work is continue to be able to scale up and be sustainable across the state.
Nicole, we do have a question in the chat from David McDowell. Does Western Kentucky Education Co-op work with Midwest? I'm happy to address that, or if you all want to, it's fine.
Karen, you can add to that?
Sure. David, the ladies had mentioned, the cascade model. So that's the model that we're really trying to focus on as a state, so that our state consultants are working collaboratively with all of our regional consultants. So, in that sense, yes, Western Kentucky Co-op does work with Midwest and with KDE. Just like schools and districts are at different places, our regional co-ops are all at different places too. So, everybody's coming to the table, in different spots and different places in their work. But all of the regional cooperatives have been invited to participate and also to bring along any districts or schools that were interested. So hopefully that answers your question. We have another question, ladies, about the presentation and if that can be shared, your PowerPoint.
Sure, absolutely, it can.
Karen, you know my abilities with Teams. I'm not sure that, can I put a file in chat or not?
I think so, yes. If you can do a link to it.
I can. Okay, I'll work on that.
Okay.
Awesome. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, trying to give good wait time. All right, here we go. So let's hear from you. Not necessarily if you had a question. If you do, please keep them coming. But this is where we really need to know what is going to make the most sense for you and your work. So the question that we're putting forward is, what is feasible for getting this work started? And Katie and I talked about this. And so we wanted to throw out a kind of tentative timeline and see how it lands. And whatever comments or questions you have, please don't hesitate to mention them. So our thought was in the spring, and we're already almost in spring, can you believe it? So we're looking at maybe April or May, perhaps. Leadership and readiness would be that 3-hour, as I said, mainly the leaders from your teams that would be present to really know, is this something we want to sign up our full team for the 12 hours? So that's that first piece. Then we have the summertime. And this is where we thought it may be important to offer the 12-hour opportunity for the teams to really dive deep into those areas that we talked about, those 5 key areas. And so, as I said, there may be some opportunities where we think about either half day or full day or modules. My immediate thought is half day or full day is probably more where we would land, but we're very open. And then our goal would be in the fall, installation and kickoff, and then the communities of practice would begin. And again, as we said, what is the preferred method for team training? Either half day or full day. So this is really your time after kind of, I know it's a lot to digest, but as you're thinking your immediate reactions, what feels like a sweet spot for you? Does spring feel too soon?
I'd rather start with summer, but that's just with us at Murray.
Thank you for that. Others that feel like summer would be a good time for the leadership piece? Lou, thank you for being willing to share. I appreciate that.
There are several comments in the chat that are also echoing the summer suggestion.
Can we clarify if this summer would mean for your teams versus like, so maybe that 3-hour kind of readiness being maybe in the spring so that we are having the right people for summer training that might be more of your school teams participating? So just wanting to make sure that we're clear on spring might be just the 3-hour kind of overview with leadership to be ready for school teams in the summer. Or early summer with leadership, okay.
Okay, early summer.
Okay.
All right, that's helpful. I think our other question then was, and I want to be just very cognizant that you're still processing everything. So you may not have a grasp yet on whether half day or full day is preferred, but kind of wanting to get that initial reaction to what was shared. So even that early summer comment was great. That's helpful for us. Any thoughts on team training delivery, half day, full day?
While folks are contemplating their answer to that question, we had another comment about could it be early summer with leadership and perhaps late summer with teams? And then we're getting some suggestions of half day training. And then also one other person mentioned 2 days of training in the summer. And then a comment from Jared Sloan on the special ed perspective from the second week of July until the second week in August, either have conference or training scheduled throughout the state. And I think that would probably be a similar sentiment for a lot of people. That's a heavy conference time across the state.
That's so helpful. Thank you. Okay. This is helpful for Katie and I when we kind of come back, and also when we meet with our KDE consultant team to think about what makes the most sense. That's why we really wanted your input to move forward. And so that really puts me at what are the next steps. So if after today and the presentation and you've had some time to maybe think this through or look through some of the content, and we are going to make sure you get the presentation, we would hope that you would express your interest and gain commitment with your regional co-op. And then if you do want to pursue this, ideally, KDE consultants will individually reach out, and they have nicely created some readiness and commitment documents that I think will also help you in making your decision. As you look at that and see more detail, perhaps you'll be able to make a more informed decision as well. So KDE consultants will also try to get more input and feedback, on when we get started and what makes the most sense. But this really is helpful today, what you've shared. So I'm going to stop share so that I can see faces again and the chat. and just ask if there are additional questions or comments. Very, very open to them. Okay. So thank you for your time and for hearing me, and for being willing to even consider this as something that you may want to pursue. And so we will definitely be in touch. And this was just the first step in introducing this to all of you. And so, yep, thanks, Laura. So we will be, I guess, taking a short break, Karen, as we transition to Katie. Does that sound okay?
That's what I think we had put that in our information, that we take a short break, so we can transition to Katie. If you all are interested in hearing about the Tier 2, you can stay on. If you only wanted to hear about the equity, you're welcome to leave the meeting. So that's certainly up to you all. And we'll take about a 10-minute break. Is that long enough, ladies? And if you all need to stand, stretch, move around, check your phone, and we'll convene back at 2:53.
Karen, I can't remember in the meeting invite if there was it a specific start time, if there were folks that were going to join us for just Tier 2?
Let me double check. I think we did give a specific time.
Wondering if we might not want to start early if some were just joining us for Tier 2.
It does not give a specific time on the invite, but I want to say maybe one of the emails maybe had a specific time. Let me double check, and we'll get that information out. If we need to wait until 3 to start, we'll put that information in the chat.
Thanks, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Karen, I just checked the invite and it does say that we will start Tier 2 at 3:15.
Oh, 3:15. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a bit of time, Katie.
Well, so how about we just say we'll start that back up at 3:15, and people want to sign off and sign back in maybe, or does that sound okay?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if we gave them 3:15 as a start time, we may want to adhere to that because some folks may join at that specific time. So if you're on the call and you want to just stay logged in, but move on to some other work briefly, you're welcome to do that, and we'll just join back and plan to get started at 3:15. So if you want to log back on around 3:10 or so, we'll get started at 3:15 with Katie's portion.
And all of our Western Kentucky people, that's 2:15.
Thanks, Christy.
Thank you. Katie was just going to pop on to see you doing okay?
Yes, doing well. How about you?
There, doing great, doing great. I haven't seen you all for a while. Just wanted to say hey.
Yeah. Thanks for being here and being in support of your districts and continuing to help build that capacity in Kentucky.
We tried. Joanna had to pop off for a minute, but she'll be back. So, all right. I'll see you on a bit.
All right. Thanks. All right, Karen, I'll just stay logged in, but I'm going to mute and pause my camera. Thank you.
All right. Uh-huh.
Karen, I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to the presentation in the chat. And then I'm assuming is Teams the same as Zoom, as if it's in there before people join, they don't see the chat. Okay. So you might have to reset or chat that if others join. But. Karen, I think you're muted.
Thank you for that heads up. I was just starting to welcome people back, see a few faces popping on, and we'll get started here in about another minute. Before we do get started, do we have any new folks joining us that were not on with us for the first hour? If you would like to do a quick introduction, just unmute and let us know who you are. I may see some names that weren't with us in the beginning, but I'm not for sure. No one's different. Okay. All right. Looks like most people I'm starting to see back with us, Katie. So it's 3:15, and we want to adhere to our time. So we're going to turn it over to Katie at this time, and Katie's going to share a little bit about the Tier 2 demo and what that will look like. So welcome back, everyone.
Thank you, Karen, and welcome to everyone else. Let's see. Am I sharing what says Tier 2 demonstration? Awesome. That is, the KDE consultants will know that the fact that I was able to do that on Teams, we should all celebrate today. That's just a tiny miracle on a Thursday afternoon. So thank you all for being with us today. And I know most of you are on with Nicole, so some of this is going to sound a little familiar. And I don't want to be too repetitive, so we'll just kind of talk to you more about what we're thinking with the Tier 2 demonstration work. A little bit of a different purpose here, not much, but the idea being that we want to continue to expand local demonstration sites. So I really want to acknowledge the fact that PBIS implementation has been happening in the state of Kentucky for, I don't know that I can pinpoint exactly how long, but for quite a long time. And you have been building that state level implementation and capacity over time. So definitely want to acknowledge that we know Tier 2 work is happening. Tier 2 systems work and Tier 2 intervention work is happening. So this project is more about continuing to expand the local demonstration sites for specifically what we're going to say is Tier 2 systems and check in, check out installation and intervention. Our intention, though, of kind of being intentional at the state level of continuing to expand those demonstration sites is this, how can this be an opportunity to continue to build state, regional, and district capacity that looks consistent across the state? So while we know Kentucky has been doing PBIS implementation for quite a long time, we also know structures in the way that work has been funded at state levels has shifted over time. And so how can this be an opportunity to continue the learning together and for all across this cascade that Nicole had introduced earlier to be in a learning opportunity together so that we can continue to build consistent implementation from state to regional to district down to that school level implementation. So again, that need of, we are really focused on building capacity across this cascade of implementation. And your KDE consultants, school climate consultants, have been training and supporting and coaching Tier 2 systems and check in, check out for a long time. Our goal here is let's all be in learning together and make sure that we are saying for Kentucky, as we continue to grow implementing sites, how do we continue to scale up so that this work can continue to be sustainable throughout.
So that when we do have our retreat,
Thinking we might need to mute one. There we go. Thank you, Karen. So as I say that, how many of you, I can see some faces, but maybe in chat or now, how many of you would say, yeah, we've been implementing Tier 2 or helping sites engage in Tier 2 work and Tier 2 systems, check in, check out, interventions. I see some hands or some indications, right? I'm seeing Dusty and others kind of raising their hands there. So want to put that out and kind of say that we want to recognize that. Consultants, or would you like to add anything in with that? And are there questions about that? All right, we'll keep moving forward. So similar to what Nicole shared with the demonstration for inclusive PBIS, the readiness of Tier 2 sites for implementation, we have put in here that, again, we have a data system to monitor school-wide discipline data. I think for most schools in Kentucky and districts in Kentucky, you guys have a database and a data system that's able to help you with your school-wide discipline data. We also have this bullet point of we're hoping that we don't reflect that disproportionality in our data as we're coming into this Tier 2 work. If we have some disproportionality, then we might want to be engaging in how do we continue to bolster our Tier 1 supports at that time. We are also looking for some implementation of Tier 1, and with an established Tier 1 team that's meeting and monitoring the implementation of your core Tier 1 social, emotional, and behavioral supports. We usually can see more impact when we have some level of fidelity at Tier 1. So that using that TFI that we have a 70% or above, or somewhere near there to be ready to continue to put those Tier 2 systems and interventions in place. That committed administrator and willingness and ability to engage in ongoing coaching and technical assistance. We know that it takes more than just training to install and truly get to fidelity with Tier 2 systems and check out or any work that we do in our building. So that ongoing coaching and TA, that we'll talk through what that scope and sequence looks like here in just a second. And again, as Nicole had said in the other demonstration project, we are hoping for the sharing of data stories and learning within a community of practice, as well as continuing to develop out the exemplars to share across the state and nationally as the learning is happening. So continuing to help build the examples of this work. So this should look familiar if you were on with the inclusive PBIS demonstration that Nicole talked through, but the scope of work looking like ongoing support. We find that it's really helpful when we start with leadership and readiness. So we'll talk through a little bit more of what that looks like, team training, and then ongoing support to continue the installation and implementation of Tier 2 work. And so by the end of this support, we the Tier 2 demonstration, as I've said, is really focused on establishing Tier 2 systems, mainly our Tier 2 teams, and what does that look like and sound like, and how are we monitoring the intervention effectiveness in those conversations. So really establishing our teaming structure to monitor Tier 2 interventions, as well as the data systems for both intervention effectiveness and individual student progress monitoring. Through this training would really focus on one intervention of check in, check out as a low-level Tier 2 intervention for meeting multiple functions of behavior to have students have that early entry into a continuum of support. So tier 2 leadership and readiness, again, is we see being successful with a 3-hour training with building administrators, tier 2 leader and coach. Again, we're always going to be trying to work through that cascade of implementation with a district and regional coach or consultant being part of that work. So we are working to build that internal capacity across that cascade of support. So the leadership and readiness time is about here's what tier 2 really looks like. Here's who should be a part of implementing tier 2. Here's what our data systems need to be ready and how that's going to look, so that we're getting the right people ready for that bigger commitment of the team training and ongoing support. So again, this leadership and readiness is another, the exploration and the commitment process to ensure this is the work that we are committed to moving forward in, and that we're ready to move forward in the opportunity. So the team training, again, very similar in the fact that this is where we see an extended group representing the school participating, including a building administrator, a lead for tier 2, our school-based clinicians. If we have community-based clinicians, how do we include them in the training and on our team? We a school nurse, general education teachers across kind of our grade levels that we represent, and including our special education teachers as well. So a very representative team of knowledge of our school and context across our grade levels being served, as well as those that we see coordinating and facilitating the work at tier 2 for some students. Again, we want to think about that cascade and having our regional and district consultants be a part of this. This is the 12 hours of training where we're really going through what our tier 2 team looks like, what's the roles and responsibilities of our tier 2 team, how do we identify students to begin in at tier 2 interventions at check-in, check-out level, so that we are developing data decision rules for entry, monitoring on and exiting out of check-in, check-out, and planning for the installation of check-in, check-out. So again, this is that training where we want to work with what works best for the school sites as far as the delivery of, if that's half day, if that's modules, what will work best to meet the needs as we deliver that content. We also are recommending that there would be a community of practice that follows this up. So the schools that are trained in this, thinking of it as a cohort model, that they're participating in the leadership training, the team training together, that we bring them back together on a monthly basis. Again, similar that it's not the full team. That's really hard to schedule around, but maybe an administrator and a building lead or a coach that's being able to come back and join and continue to have the accountability and the benchmarking of where are we at in our installation of tier 2 systems and check-in, check-out, or our boosting of the systems and check-in, check-out. So monthly community of practice for approximately 6 months or across the school year to continue the problem solve that implementation. And then again, the opportunity for some individualized technical assistance, very similar to how Nicole described that in the inclusion of PBIS, that we see this as joining and observing a tier 2 systems team meeting as a TA opportunity, just to hear where we're at and what questions are coming up, and how to give feedback to continue to support where that tier 2 team is at in their monitoring of tier 2 interventions with effectiveness. So let's check in and see how that's fitting for what you might be looking for as far as some tier 2 supports and tier 2 work. So I'm going to stop so I can see more faces, but what was affirming to your thinking and need, and what questions might you have?
Hey, Katie, it's Eli. I'm with Murray High School.
Hi, Eli.
My first question is how do you measure progress with Tier 2? Like, I know there's check-in and check-out, and you have that data, but I mean, Christy Tones, or I hope I'm saying her last name right. Christy, we had a meeting about a week ago, and she said peer groups is a highly popular intervention that she's seeing used at the high school level. So have you seen any ways to measure success with those, or any ways to kind of, I guess, other than check in, check out? Because I'm thinking about high school students kind of carrying around a check in, check out sheet. I know some kids are probably not going to want to do that. So I'm thinking the peer group might be the best intervention for us here. Just thinking of ways how we can measure success with those.
So Eli, what I can speak to is how we think about, I'm not exactly sure how you might monitor peer group progress, but what I can tell you is we tend to look for what skills are we teaching in the intervention, and how can we gather feedback on how those skills are being generalized into the classroom setting or the school setting across the board. So we tend to look at that as how giving feedback to students on the skills that are being taught, and within check in, check out. And as we layer interventions, we think about using a daily progress report card, which is what you're referring to, as the system to prompt giving that feedback. So think, how can we monitor that the skill, like whatever skills we want to be teaching in our Tier 2 interventions, is hopefully an additional layer to what's happened at Tier 1, and then how are we going to progress monitor that? So I would say we see high schools, it is more challenging to implement check in, check out at a high school level, but the systems of the system pieces are there on how to help design a way for our adults in the building to have a schedule for when they're going to give more specific feedback on the skills that we're teaching the students. So if we can, help see that the intervention is the behavior specific feedback on a scheduled basis, that is one of the main reasons that we train and start with check in, check out, because that is a great way of getting that. Here's the system for giving feedback, and then here's the data to see how we do that. We also always have to have the outcome data point of whatever got our students into check in, check out. So if that's attendance or office discipline referrals or visits to the school nurse, that we're monitoring that the skills that we're seeing being generalized into the classroom, but also that we see those outcome data points decreasing over time. So that's a very quick indicator. I know there's others probably I think from the co-op level that might have some other thoughts on that, and or high schools who may be implementing check in, check out in your state.
So Katie, can I just comment, please?
Yes, you can.
So the other day when we were just having a conversation with Eli's district people and his principal, assistant principal, I was just explaining to them that in the Tier 2 system, we share a continuum of different interventions that are possible, but within that training, we would go through all of those interventions and give you much more detailed ways of using the intervention, monitoring it, and that kind of thing. And so, Eli, thanks for that question. This language is new to their high school, and Eli's doing a great job trying to figure out exactly what to do.
Katie, I have some questions.
Of course, yes.
So this would be for schools that are at Fidelity at Tier 1, and we're basically proposing that they go through the Tier 2 training series. And I'm just kind of curious, how this might be different from what we do with our co-op. Like we've got schools that we've just explored with and have signed up for our Tier 2 training series. And the only thing that looks different to me is that we offer that third day, that beyond check-in, check-out day. So could you speak a little bit to that?
I can. Dusty, I was hoping you might ask this question because I do think, like we said, there's Tier 2 work happening across your state, and within a lot of your co-ops, you have been training Tier 2 systems and check-in, check-out, and I would say you're training those in the way that we are going to train that in this demonstration project as well. So Dusty, I wouldn't say that this is a demonstration project that your schools have to be involved in, but how can we continue the across that cascade? What the consultants and us have been talking about is where are the natural opportunities to continue to link, okay, here's Tier 2 work that's already been happening and some across that cascade where we've been training Tier 2, where is the natural opportunities to kind of bring the learning back together to say, well, here's what we've been doing at Southeast South Central, and here's the work we've been learning through some new demonstration sites. And I think we see that maybe happening at those regional connection conversations. So that we are continuing to say, well, at Southeast South Central, we've been delivering it in a 2-day model, or at GREC, we've been doing that in a 3-day model, and here's the kind of series of what that looks like. So we start to maybe have more of those conversations and that learning together. And the delivery model to me we all have different contexts. Hopefully the content and what we're training to as far as the critical features is where the importance really comes down to. So I think that learning across the cascade, Dusty, and how do we continue to build that in some of those natural opportunities. So is that answering what question you had, and what else does it bring up?
Yes, that answers.
Okay.
And I might also clarify, when Katie was referring to the regional connection opportunities, Dusty, what I think, and not speaking for her, but what I think she was referring to there is the consultant connection that that new opportunity that we have set up that is available for, all of the regional consultants to join in. We thought that would be a good opportunity and a place for some of those discussions to take place for that sharing or networking.
So really, for example, in our region, a district could choose to do our training series or this. Is that correct?
Well, Dusty, I would say the goal with this is to have the district and the region participate with them. I think if there was a school in your region that was interested in this demonstration work, I think Lee's your consultant, but I think Lee would be saying, hey, you know what, your local co-op is also offering this training and we should probably connect you into the training there. And that your capacity and your learning is through that we keep that work aligned through the consultant connection. Did I get it right this time, Karen? Does that make sense, Dusty? And does that make sense to you and other co-ops who are on here? That I am hoping this isn't like a take you away from the supports that your local region is providing, but more of an opportunity to continue growing the consistency and the capacity across the state. What other questions?
I'm sorry. I want to clarify from a district point to that. So if we had a team that went to GREC for their Tier 2 team training, then they could still be the demonstration site that would still get just consistent support with the care practice and all the other pieces that you're saying. Am I understanding that correct or not?
I think, Stacy, I think as long as we are working through GREC and Southeast South Central in that realm, that we want to make sure that that is also fitting for, you know, that there's not another way that they see that support happening. And KDE consultants, please jump in if you see something differently there, but.
I guess where I would want to go with this is if I had a school, because all our schools are doing tier 2. Are they doing it with fidelity? So to me, is this support going to be ongoing to help see that that's what's in place? Does that make sense?
So Stacy, seeing a need for like that, this is also an opportunity to kind of booster up or kind of reinstall tier 2 systems and check in, check out. I mean, that is generally how I think of this training, and that we see schools as it's my initial starting of tier 2 systems, or, you know, initial meaning like first rollout of official training and installation. And also that we see teams that would say that, well, we've been doing tier 2, but we've had a change in administrator. We've had a lot of new team members. We've just lived through a few years of a pandemic, and we need to kind of reinvest or reinstall those systems. So I think that can be an either or based on the need there. So I think from co-ops, I think it is like those co-ops that are saying, you know, we are doing this support. Is this new or different? The training content itself is not new or different. If you feel like this is an opportunity to continue to build your regional capacity, and you want to engage in this work with a school or, you know, a school or two, or and continue kind of to grow your capacity, I think that it is an opportunity for that. I also think if you're a co-op saying, you know what, if there's a school that's interested, we would like to have them come through us. That's the intention. It's not to take away from the local supports that you are developing. Other questions as far as what might be accomplished and the objectives of the training and that would be offered? From those of you who are on, could we do a like a fist to 5 of this is an area of need and would be meeting our need, being like, yes, we have some sites that this is a level of support, like a 5, and a 1 being no, this isn't quite what would be meeting our needs. Is that a fair kind of assessment of the need, or how this demonstration might be meeting that need? Could do a fist to 5 in chat. Dusty saying 1. Thank you, Dusty. I think I saw that from Kathy and Sandra. Right.
There's a 2 in the chat.
Eli.
Couple of 2s, a 1 and a 3 in the chat.
Thank you.
Another one and another 3. So
Thank
a lot
you.
of across the board, Katie.
That's all right. Gina, can you remind me where you were, what site you're connected with?
Gina.
I'm from Warren County. Warren County, thank you. All right, well, I think the last piece is about the input piece, which is the same as, and I know I'm not sharing my screen, but it's that if you were interested, what would be the feasible timeline for getting started? So similar to what we talked about in the inclusive PBIS, we were proposing maybe the leadership and readiness of this work happening in the spring with some team training and cohorts, and possibly in the summer with installation and kickoff into the fall. Is there any different feedback on that from a tier 2 lens than the inclusive PBIS lens? If you were considering, is it still that summertime being that preference of when getting started would happen? And knowing we're across the board on if this is meeting our needs, maybe this is the kind of going to that next steps as well, just saying, maybe we continue to express interest through, if you are a district or a school that's on here, that you continue to work with your co-op to express that interest and need, and then be able to reach out, KDE consultants reaching back out through co-ops to gain commitment and readiness for this work. I want to say that I appreciate the where a lot of you are, and I would see you at that, like, no, this isn't really the need for our co-op and our district. And I think that also tells us that our goal is, how do we continue to build that capacity that some of you have built in your local regional sites across our state, with the opportunity for you all to continue to support that learning and build and at that regional level with the consultant connection. So I want to acknowledge that I'm kind of in agreement with some of where you're at on that, and that the purpose is to help continue to grow the capacity across the state with that. Is there other feedback though? I don't want to rush us in answering questions or giving feedback on that timeline. So other thoughts or questions to put in? All right, so I think reach out to your regional consultant, or if you're a regional person, reaching out with your KDE consultant to continue some conversations. And I also know your KDE consultants will be following up with you on your need or your readiness and your commitment to wanting to continue this work, so we can continue those individual conversations. Thank you, Dusty. All right, consultants, any other closing housekeeping items?
Not that I'm aware of. I think we would just like to really thank everybody for their time today, and for your interest and hanging out with us for the last couple of hours. We really appreciate and value that you gave us that time today.